What's up, everyone? My name is Sia Nejad, and you're watching the Early Edge College Football Picks Show. I'm joined by Emory Hunt and Tom Casale to break it all down for college football week 12. Emory, Tom, we've got a lot of games to get into, but I want to start with this. Emory, you were talking pre-show with me and Tom about the playoff system and potentially a 24-team playoff. Can you expound upon that for the audience here?
Guys, this season has shown us why the college football playoff at the FBS level needs to be expanded. I've always been a proponent for the 2014 playoff like we've seen at the FCS level for decades upon decades. And the reason why is because every spring, every summer, every winter workouts, coach tell you if we work hard, we have a chance to win a national championship. That doesn't ring true for 75% of the teams in college football. And now they throw in this one G5 representative. But when you look around the landscape, who's that G5 representative, right? So if you look at it from if you win your conference, you get an auto bid. So that's 10 conference champions. And now you can have your 14 at-large bids. So therefore, everyone gets a seat at the table. Obviously, the strength of schedule and obviously those teams that are worthy of the at-large bids will work themselves into the conversation. But that eliminates the need for, man, you could only have one ACC team or one Big 12 team. If you have the conference champs and that 14 teams of at-large bids will work itself out easily, and it'll put more excitement in the regular season. Imagine Maction knowing that whoever wins this conference has a seat at the college football playoff. It'll make everything must-see TV at the highest level, because we've seen it at the FCS, D2, and even D3 level, which has like a 32-team playoff because they have over 300 teams in Division III.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get to picks in just a second. I do want to remind you that the show is brought to you by BetMGM. Make it legendary. Tom, pretty legendary take there. And I know Emory's spoken of this before, and I know you've objected to the current college football playoff system. Your reaction to what Emory just said?
Yeah, I've always said that anyone who thought an expanded college football playoff was going to ruin the sport, I think it's the worst sports take anyone's ever had ever. And I've had some bad ones. So that's saying a lot. Here's the thing, and here's why. First of all, it's not going to be 12 teams. If you think it's not going to expand, you don't really understand how college sports works. Second of all, this whole thing that we shouldn't expand it because only a few teams have a chance to win it. Sia, you know where my bread is buttered. It's college basketball, right? That's where I live. Do you know how many sleeper teams have won the national championship in college basketball? Virtually zero. Okay, everyone remembers the time George Mason made it to the Final Four. That happens once every 20 years, okay? Yeah. The best teams in every sport are always going to win it. What you're looking for is meaningful games. Like March Madness, the upset stuff is like in round 1, maybe round 2. Then it's over. The problem we have in college football right now is at the end of the year, most of these games are meaningless now. Like these bowl games I can't even watch them. I can't watch them. And I once watched a Williams-Amherst scoreless tie at 9:00 in the morning. Like that's how much football I watch. And I can't watch these bowl games. So I always thought 16 was probably the right number, but I don't mind Emory's 24 anymore, only because I kind of agree with what he's saying. Let's get more meaningful games in here at the end of the season.
I mean, we all watched Jordan Love and the Packers and Jalen Hurts and the Eagles last night. If we're going to watch that, we're going to watch just about everything, especially some college football. Go ahead, Emory.
I will say this, Sia, because I know people in the comments are going to quickly come with their bullet points of why this wouldn't work, right? Oh, it'll never happen. Well, firstly, to make it happen, you cut the regular season to 11 games, 10 games if you really want to. Therefore, you can keep the money-making conference championship games, or you cut it to 11 games and then eliminate conference championship games so you can still get all of these games in by the end of January 6th.
So I love that idea, because I feel like if you're just tacking on games, it is a little much. But if you're taking away a game or two from the regular season or something like that, this makes a lot of sense, and I'm absolutely for it. All right,
I'm sure Sia, go ahead, Tom. If you don't think that's if you think that's a big deal, take a look at who the SEC teams are playing next week. Eastern Illinois, right? They always have that week where they play nobody. So I'm pretty sure we could cut that down a week.
Apologies to anyone out there who goes to Eastern Illinois or graduated from East Illinois. You got a good program as well. All right, let's go to some bets. We're going to start out with the ACC, and we're going to go to Clemson and Louisville. This line over at BetMGM, I believe it is at 3. You know, a lot of these lines early in the week are toggling back and forth. This one between 3 and 3.5, perhaps. Louisville coming off a loss, Clemson coming off a win, if you want to call it that, against Florida State. Again, at BetMGM, this line is 3. The total is 50.5. Emory, I'm going to start with you. What's your play in this game?
I love Clemson in this spot, man. At some point, they still have that eye of the tiger, pun intended. They still are the Tiffany franchise right now in the ACC over the last decade plus. And so I still feel like there's some pride and fight left. And when you look at their defensive line, I know it hasn't been what we thought it was going to be coming into the season. And I know Louisville on the other side can match that same energy up front. I think we'll see a lower scoring game. And when you have a lower scoring game, therein lies, okay, Clemson's ability to say, hey, we've been here before. We can find a way to gut this out. And I think they will. So I'll take them plus the points.
Tom, you're on the other side of it.
Yeah, listen, last week, I mean, I just to tell you how much I can't catch a break on these best bets. Last week I had Cal plus 19.5 written down, and I erased it to put Oregon in there. So that's where I am right now. But I actually thought Cal was in a pretty good spot last week. I thought that was a bad spot for Louisville. And Cal's actually done pretty good on the road. So I wasn't surprised that they got upset last week. I do think this is a good Louisville team, though. And I think for me, Clemson is so hard to predict when they're going to play well, when they're not going to play well. So I'm going to go more with the consistency and take Louisville to rebound this week.
All right. We got one pick for Louisville and one pick for Clemson. Let's move to the next game here, because this one is super interesting to me. I mean, this is where College Game Day is going, right? I mean, do I have that right? Yeah, that is where College Game Day will be, this game at noon. Notre Dame's rattled off some wins, but Pittsburgh playing really well too. The line 11.5, total 55.5 here at BetMGM. Tom, I'll start with you this time. Are we laying the points with Notre Dame?
So my theme this week is every year you have that Saturday that's like a scary Saturday. And if you look at some of these matchups this week for these teams that, you know, when you get close to that college football playoff, you start putting an eye on that playoff. I think there's a couple of teams that got some scary games. Not that they're going to lose, but I think they could be tough. I love Notre Dame. I love their team. You know, I thought all along, even though they lost those 2 games early, that they would run the table and make the playoff, and they were going to be a scary team in the playoff. So I do think they're going to win this game. But I think Pitt can stay around early, put the scare into them. And at 11.5, I got to lean the Panthers there.
So Emory, this does feel like a lot of points. I know Notre Dame, especially with that running attack, has a lot to throw at Pittsburgh, but this does feel like College Game Day is there. Pitt's kind of on the map. 11.5 feels like a lot. You disagree?
Yeah, I mean, you can kill it. They got the great Dan Marino uniforms, a great tradition, Curtis Martin, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, this is something unique for Notre Dame, right? Because not only do they have to win, but they are in win with style points mode because of those 2 losses earlier in the season. Now, one looks great. I know that sounds weird to say a great loss. That's Texas A&M. But the other one is kind of looking like, you probably should have beat Miami, right? And so since then, because of their strength of schedule, they have to go on a run and have to win emphatically to let people know, okay, maybe that was an anomaly. That was so earlier in the season. They're a different team now. Kind of like what we saw from them last year after they lost that game to Texas A&M, and then they went on lost that game to Northern Illinois, and then went on a run and got into the postseason and got to the national championship game. So I feel like this is a spot where they have to continue to win. I can trust this number because it's not in the 20s, and I think this is something that they can cover. Well, I saw it at 10.5 earlier in the week. I will also take it at 11.5 because of the ground game and how they have to win in order to keep their name ringing true amongst these voters.
Yeah, Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, likely to have good games if they cover the spread here. And you're right, Notre Dame winning 7 in a row since those 2 losses to Texas A&M and Miami. Pitt has won 5 in a row. And again, I don't know. Emory, this is one of those, you left it at yada, yada, yada. But College Game Day is at Pitt. There's something about that makes me a little shaky on this one. Feels like Notre Dame's going to get out of there with a win. but they're going to kind of escape with a win. I'm just taking a ride down narrative street, so just ignore me. Let's go to Virginia and Duke. UVA overall playing really well. They're getting 6.5 points here. Duke coming off the loss to UConn, 58.5 point total again here at BetMGM. Tom, I'll start with you. What do we like? 6.5. It feels like kind of a lot.
Yeah, well, listen, I love Emory, but I got news for everybody. If Notre Dame wins the rest of their games by 1 point, the committee's not keeping them out of the field. They're just not. All right, they're in. They're in
TV product. Yep, it's a TV product.
Yeah.
That's Texas needs like 6 losses to be completely out of the running.
That's right. We'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I looked at this like 58.5. These teams don't play defense. I think this is going to be another wild one. You look at some of these Duke games recently, and it's just up and down the field. I do lean Virginia plus the 6.5. I think they're better in the underdog role than the favorite role. But I just, I'm actually thinking about playing this officially. I just think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game, so I'll go over the 58.5.
Emory, I like the 58.5 point call or total call here, but we also got a lean from Tom on the plus 6.5. Is that what you're taking maybe as an official play?
Yes, and I love Tom's pick of the over because that's where I nearly went before I realized, it was just a concussion, not putting light on a concussion for Chandler Morris, but it sounds like he's going to be able to play in this game, which, to Tom's point, I like the points to be scored on Virginia's side too, just like Duke will score points. So the over is definitely a play. We could both hit this pick, but because I can see this going back and forth because they'll have their starting quarterback in there that operates that offense at a high level, give me Virginia plus the points here. This one is not going to be nearly a touchdown difference between them and Duke. They'll put up a lot. It'll look like a basketball game out there as we are entering the beginning of basketball season.
That's actually a great transition to what I'm about to say. And I agree with you guys. I'm on the plus 6.5 and the over. And not that I was on it pre-show, but, looking at it now and listening to what you all have to say, I'm on this one as well. But you mentioned college basketball, Emory. And Tom, I know you're all over the Discord for college football and college basketball. And if you're in the Discord, it means you're a member of SportsLine. And if you're a member of SportsLine, you get all of these picks ahead of time, whether it's college basketball, college football, NFL, NBA, you name it, SportsLine's got it. And it's not just picks. It's articles, it's simulations, it's DFS plays, model plays, 60% off the annual plan at SportsLine. If you type in the promo code winners, here's how you do it. Go to sportsline.com/join. Type in the promo code winners. Boom, you're done. You get 60% off the annual plan at sportsline.com/join. Promo code winners. All right, we're done with the ACC for now. We got to move over to the Big Ten with Tom and Emory right after this message from our partners. All right, we're back and we move to the Big Ten with Emory and Tom. We're going to go to Michigan and Northwestern, this one at Wrigley Field, which is always kind of interesting. Emory, we've got another 11.5 point spread here, 41 point total, which again, my eyes get really big when I see 11.5 and a really low total like this. Doesn't mean I love Northwestern. I just think it's interesting. What do you think's interesting in this game, Emory?
I think, first of all, Northwestern's playing really good this year. I love the fact that they're playing good football, and I always love seeing those teams like Northwestern, like Rice, like Tulane, like Temple, all of those smart schools, Vanderbilt, Duke, all of those schools playing really well because it shows you can win anywhere. Shout out to Stanford for being competitive. They ain't winning right now, but he's competitive. But this number to me is more about Michigan's defense. I think the defense will be able to keep this one where it needs to be in order for Michigan to cover. Michigan can win this game 20-7, and it helps us cash this point spread. That's why I see this game going. And if Northwestern is listening, as they should, with all of our shows that we do here on CBS Sports HQ and CBS Sports Network, find a way to play more games at this stadium you're at, as opposed to the new stadium that you're currently building. Like, stay on campus. It works for y'all.
I mean, I went to. This was D1AA when I went to James Madison, but and I think it's still the case, their stadium is on campus, and it is a really, really cool atmosphere, even back then when they weren't even Division I. So certainly endorse that. All right, let's go to Tom, Northwestern. Talk to me.
Yeah, I agree pretty much with everything Emory said. Northwestern's a tough team for me because I misjudged them coming into the year. I thought they were like a 3-win team. They have a really good coach, and they play above their heads. Emory mentioned 20-7. I'm kind of hoping it's 20-10, so Northwestern covers. But I think that's the kind of game it's going to be. They've been on the road with Bryce Underwood. He hasn't been throwing it all over the place. They've been playing kind of conservative, let their defense and running game win. So I do think it's going to be like that 20-7, 23-13 kind of game. But in a lower scoring game, I'll lean taking the points with Northwestern.
Plus 11.5 Northwestern. And then Emory's going the other way, laying the points. Any comment on the total here, 41, Tom? I mean, do we think this is going to be one of those slugfests? Because we're about to get to what I think might be a slugfest in Iowa-USC. This is just such a low total. I feel like I have to ask about it.
Yeah, no, it's one of those. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game, but the total's just too low. Because Michigan does have players on offense. It wouldn't be surprising if they scored around 27, and then you're hoping that you don't get anything from Northwestern. I would lean the under. It's just the number is too low for me to take it.
Emory, do you have a lean in this one in terms of the total?
Because I'm all encompassing of a analyst here, I was double checking the weather because I thought it was going to be snowy, but it's going to be a nice Chicago-y 66 degrees.
Wow.
So, right, you know what I'm saying? So, scratch that. I think it still goes under, or it'll flirt with the over. It'll get at probably like 40 points. So you'll sweat it out. So I'll probably stay away from that completely.
All right. And you mentioned you being the analyst that you are, Emory Hunt. People watch you on, obviously, the SportsLine YouTube channel. They watch you on CBS Sports Network, and they watch you on CBS Sports HQ, along with Tom Casale and myself. I feel like people don't understand that there's so much content out there that is on so many different platforms. So if you haven't visited, let's say, CBS Sports HQ to watch Emory, you're on all the time. Tom, you're on all the time as well. I highly encourage people to get over to HQ because I mean, that's the content there is just you just absolutely can't beat it. So just a little promo for CBS Sports HQ there. Let's go to this. Go ahead.
I will say we're everywhere. I get off a flight. I see in the concourse HQ is on at the bars. Everybody's stopping me. I'm thinking they want autographs. They just kind of asking, "Do you know Sia Nejad?" I'm like, "Dang!" So I just keep it moving.
Go ahead, Tom. Did you have something?
No, I was gonna say he's right. Like I have people like. Who get in touch with me on Facebook that have seen it in a bar and everything. And, I should say that out of all the people, I think like I'm my kid's fourth favorite person at CBS. They love Emory, they like Sia, and they love Mike McClure. And I think Zach Simini's in there too. So I'm like 6 on my kids' list of favorite analysts at CBS.
Yeah, I have a all-time Zach ranking, and Zach Simini's only number 2 there because I had to put Zach Morris first. I mean, who's not going to put Zach Morris first, ladies and gentlemen? Let's go to Iowa and USC. Now, I mentioned that I thought this was going to be a slugfest. It's a 49.5 point total. I just happen to think that Iowa's going to run the ball and turn this into just a sloppy game and just a grinded out, smash mouth type atmosphere, which is why I lean to the plus 6.5. Tom, where do you lean in this one?
Yeah, well, listen, last Wednesday when I gave out Oregon, it didn't look like the weather was going to be awful in Iowa. And I turned the game on Saturday and I was just like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, if you're laying points in Iowa and you turn on the game and that's the weather, you have no chance. That's Iowa lives off of that. That's their whole brand is playing close, low scoring games at home and bad weather, right? So they had the weather advantage last week that I think hurt Oregon. They won't have that this week. I do lean. Here's my only issue with Iowa this week. They led Oregon late in the game. They had that game, and Oregon, went down and kicked the field goal. How are they mentally now going on the road on the West Coast to USC? That's my only concern. But if they're okay, if the kids are focused and ready to play, I do think this is a tough game for USC because Iowa is just a hard team to blow out. So I'll lean plus 6.5 here.
Emory, I feel like going over to the West Coast and playing USC is something that needs to be factored in. But I feel like if there was a team that was going to be able to put last week to bed and maybe take the positives out of last week and just take out their frustration, on a team that's not used to, this type of football necessarily. It is Iowa.
Yes, you're absolutely right. But I will add some context too, because if you would have told me last week that Iowa would have a lead late in the game and they would lose, I would have guessed they would have lost by 17 other reasons outside of them giving up plays on defense. So that was shocking to me to see the defense be the reason why they lost the game. But on top of that, you can't underestimate these guys going out to California, Southern California, Los Angeles at that. If I was a coach, I'd find a way to fly into that ball game 40 minutes before kickoff, because for those guys at Iowa, it will be a significant distraction. The landscape is different out there, guys. I'm going to just be upfront and honest with you. But I will say this. You guys are right. Iowa plays a physical brand of football. That's something that USC, they've started to do a little bit more of because they ran the ball better this year. But this is enough to where Iowa is trying to, like you said, forget what happened last week and still try to ruin someone's season. I think that's going to be the case. This will be another one of these tight white knuckle fights between Iowa and whoever's on the other side.
Yeah, we think it's maybe too many points here. We're taking the points with the Iowa Hawkeyes. That's going to do it for the Big Ten games that we're going to cover. But we've still got Big 12, SEC, best bets. We got a lot of games still to go. We're going to cover it all right after this message from our partners. We're back on the Early Edge, brought to you by BetMGM. Make it legendary. Let's go to the Big 12. Utah, Baylor. This is an 8.5-point spread here. Utah playing pretty well. Baylor's got that offense to deal with, plus 8.5. What do we think, Emory Hunt?
I like Utah. I am done trying to doubt Utah. I think Utah has now joined the conversation, the college football party this year. What shocks me is that the spread is 8.5, yet the total is 60.5. So they're expecting either Utah to just completely obliterate Baylor, or they're expecting Utah to beat Baylor by double digits, while Baylor should be able to score a bunch of points against Utah's defense. So something smells rotten in Denmark, but I will trust the fact that Utah has played some great ball the last couple of weeks, and I will lay the 8.5 with them comfortably.
Yeah, Tom, I like what Emory just said there. 60.5 seems like a lot of points, and I also like Utah here. What do you like?
Yeah, I feel like, I missed some opportunities this year with Baylor. I thought they got kind of lucky last year. At the end of the season, they got hot. I didn't really like them coming into the season. I think Dave Aranda's a good defensive coordinator. I think he's in trouble there as the head coach. And I feel like this might be the game, right? There's that game when the head coach where you just say he's gone. This might be it. I really think Utah's a good team. They lost a close game to BYU that really hurt them. And then they lost to Texas Tech, who's by far the best team in the Big 12. But I would really like to see Utah get in that Big 12 championship game, because I think them versus Texas Tech is the best game in the Big 12 to happen. And I think I just got a hunch they roll Baylor on the road this week.
Yeah, so we got 2 votes for any commentary on that total, Tom?
Yeah, I think it probably goes over. I think Utah scores a lot. I don't think Baylor can stop them. They're drastically overmatched in the trenches.
This feels like a pretty strong play from the both of you. Of course, we do get to our best bets at the end of this show. Let's go to TCU and BYU. Speaking of Texas Tech, they dispatched BYU extremely easily last week. Now, BYU at home here is laying 4.5 points. Emory, BYU feels like they've had some turnover luck, some general luck, and then they ran into Texas Tech last week, and Texas Tech took care of business. But I don't know that I can back TCU here, but I don't like BYU, so tell me what I'm supposed to like here.
You're supposed to like BYU because you can at least trust that defensively and in the trenches along the offensive line, they can control the game. I think TCU wants to make it a track meet, and they really can against anybody. But if they miss one series, if they lose a series to a team like BYU, now you just lost not only a chance to score in a series, but you've lost 6 minutes off the clock, because they'll go on this long, sustained drive and they'll shrink the ball game. And I think this will be about possessions more so than anything. So I do like this short number for BYU to cover.
Tom, did I overstate it with BYU? I mean, I kind of implied that they're lucky to be where they're at, but I do feel like they escaped with some wins earlier in the season. Your thoughts on laying the 4.5?
Yeah, no, they did get a little lucky, but here's the thing. Listen, my worst betting loss ever many years ago, I had an over in an Arizona-Stanford game and needed 1 point in the second half and didn't get it. So
Wow.
that ranks number one. I don't know where last week's TCU game ranks when I had a -3, but it's up there. I mean, they completely dominated Iowa State. They gave up a punt return. They fumbled twice going in. I mean, I don't really get emotional over losses, but that one hurt. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm on the right side type of guy when you lose, but geez, that's one of those where everything you think happens except the final score. So I'm completely out on TCU. You watched them last week and there's just something missing. I don't know what it is, but they go out, they dominate a game. They should be winning by 20 plus, and you look up and they're losing. And I'll say one thing about BYU. I think Emory hit it on the head. Their defense kept them in against Texas Tech last week. I mean, they were getting dominated, but they were still in the game because of that defense, which is very, very impressive. I kind of feel like BYU wins this one going away.
Do you need some of our emotional support for that TCU loss last week? Because I feel like
that was tough.
So we do this pretty much every day, right? And so we're going to have losses like that. Emory, do you have, whether it's a historical bad beat or maybe this season, where you thought of it or you think of it and you're just like, there's just no way I lost that bet?
Yes. Friday I do the show on CBS Sports Network, the College Football Pick Show, right? And I'm known for my wild leg FCS only parlays. So this was 2 weeks ago. I had a 10-leg FCS parlay combination of money line, point spread, total. And we go back to do the show the next week, and we're looking at tallying up the score. The parlay was 9-0 until the last game of the parlay, the last leg. Austin Peay was 7.5-point favorites, and they lost outright. And that was my most confident of the leg. In fact, I started that parlay with that leg. As oh, this is. I'll take them on the money line. They'll blow this team out. They 7. I will play around the point spread. Everything else hit except that one. So I lost the last game of the night. So I'm like, you gotta be kidding.
That's tough. Tom, you have any other stories to relay other than the TCU loss and the big one from a couple of years ago?
Oh, I could write a book. I mean, I have so many that, college basketball fouled with 0.1 second to go. You know, for whatever reason, kids love to foul when they're down 10 with 0.1 seconds to go. I will say this, though. I was on the other end of the bad beat with my first big bet ever, Cordell Stewart chucking 160 yards. I had
Colorado.
That was my first $500 bet ever that I ever made, and I was running down the street. My family thought, because I was like 17. I had a bookie and I was betting $500 that I didn't have, but I was. So I've had a lot of bad beats, but in all honesty, if you think about it, I probably should have quit when I was ahead that day. I thought gambling was that much fun. I was so young and stupid.
I'll tell you this though. I will say, a lot of my shut up Emory moments have come because I just be loud and obnoxiously egregious in hating toward the other side, right? Like early in the season, the way I led into that UL Rice game, and for us to go out there and lose to Rice 14-12, I ain't talking about my Raging Cajuns all season after that, right? Because that'd be my issue. Like if I go hard in the paint and then they go out there and lay an egg, or anybody goes out there and lay an egg, now we're in trouble.
Yeah. I believe that was Cordell connecting to Michael Westbrook on that play?
Yep.
Yes.
I'll tell you one real quick in the NFL that this is a famous one. I don't know if you guys remember this. It was Patriots Bills. The Patriots were plus 3.5, and the Bills scored late on a terrible. I'm sorry, it was reversed. The Bills were plus 3.5, and the Patriots scored late. They called a terrible pass interference on a Hail Mary, and then Ben Coates catches the touchdown. So they're going for the extra point to win by 3, and the Bills left the field. So the Patriots snapped it and ran it in for 2 and covered by 0.5 point. And I had the plus 3.5 And let me just say that was a week where I had not had much success. So there's still a bookie looking for me over that game.
That is incredible. All right. Well, that was a really fun aside. I hope everybody watching, maybe you remember some good beats, some bad beats, whatever the case may be. Always bet responsibly. I do want to say that. Have fun with this. But we got to move forward because we got a lot of big SEC games to cover. I'm looking at Arkansas, LSU, Oklahoma, Bama, Texas, Georgia. And then we got to get to our best bets. We're going to cover it all right after this message from our partners. We're back on the early edge. It's time to hit the SEC. Tom, I'm going to start with you. Arkansas laying 5.5 points at LSU. I mean, if you thought LSU was going to have a bit of a bounce back last week, it didn't exactly work out. This one's Saturday at 12:45. What's your play here? Are we taking LSU, Tom?
Yeah, this LSU is I think we have that wrong on the sheet. LSU is the favorite in this game. They're
Okay.
not. So, yeah, listen, this is a tough one. You're looking at two teams that are just playing out the year. LSU's coming off the loss to Alabama. It's they really should have covered that game. They lose late, but by a half a point. To me, I just think this is a game where LSU, even though their offense hasn't played well this year, Arkansas's defense is so bad. I'm going to lean LSU, but this is by far my least confident play of the show. This is a tough game.
Yeah, Emory, I thought LSU, again, as 5.5 point favorites here against Arkansas, I thought they looked pretty inspired in the first half. I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading into it. Pretty inspired in the first half, and then things kind of unraveled. What's your take here? Are we going to back LSU and lay the points?
Yes, and Tom touched on a big reason why Arkansas, they're required by rules to put 11 dudes out there on defense, but they're not playing defense. So LSU will find points. LSU will find even more points if Van Buren starts at quarterback because he moves the offense a lot better. He's willing to take off and run forward and not scramble backwards like Garrett Nussmeier. And on the other side, you have a Taylor Green, who I said was the best quarterback in the SEC as an NFL draft prospect before the season, over Sellers, over Arch Manning, over Nussmeier, and we didn't know what Ty Simpson was because he hadn't played.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a guy that can really cause a problem for this LSU defense. But the problem is Arkansas can't stop LSU. And so I know that just by them showing what they can't stop anybody. So this game is going to be probably going to hit the over, but also LSU will have enough points to where they'll cover this spread, but it'll be entertaining back and forth because Arkansas doesn't play defense.
So if I heard that correctly, you think this LSU team is better and more dynamic with Nussmeier on the bench?
Yes, and we saw that against Alabama, how quickly the offense looked. With Van Buren was coming in, was throwing with touch, timing, anticipation. He was taking off when the opportunity presented itself. And I can only imagine if he goes in as a full-time starter, they'll be fine. But if you go back out there with Nussmeier and he's still playing inconsistent, maybe you give Nussmeier the start, but that leash is going to be shorter this time around as opposed to throughout the course of the season, because we saw what Van Buren looked like when he got in the ball game.
All right. Speaking of Alabama, let's go to Oklahoma. +6 at Alabama. I think we've got a 46 point total. This is, again, Bama laying 6, 46 point total here at BetMGM. So the Sooners, interesting, coming off a bye. And then prior to that, coming off a win against Tennessee. I don't know, Tom, if you have a feeling about John Mateer just being kind of fully back from what we saw earlier in the season. Either way, what do you like in this game?
Yeah, well, first I got to give Emory props. He's been anti-Nussmeier since the first show we did back in August, and he's right. He hasn't played. You talk about Kelly all you want, but he hadn't played well. So he's been on that since the jump. In this game, I'm gonna lean under here. I always lean under in an Oklahoma game for obvious reasons. Their defense puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They kind of play these slog type of games. That's how they want to play, with a shot to win late. And to be honest, Alabama's played those too. Like when you look at Alabama, one of the reasons I liked LSU plus the 10.5 last week, They lost by 11 or whatever. That Alabama is just not blowing teams out. They've covered a couple of these games at the end. But they've kind of been tight, with South Carolina, with these teams. So I think this is going to be a close, low-scoring game. I think the spread's right, so I'll lean under 46.
Yeah, I thought they were a little tight against LSU as well last week. I mean, maybe a first half bet is in play for Oklahoma here. Emory, what do you like in this game?
I like Tom's point about them playing these type of games, because I could see this game playing out like how we saw LSU and Bama play out last week. I could see this being a 20-7 game or something like that, 20-10. Because if we remember last year, this was the game that Oklahoma just obliterated Alabama. I mean, they had like the pick six. They made Jalen Milroe turn into a pumpkin, all of that stuff. And so I can understand Alabama coming into this ball game with revenge on their minds, and especially with the Oklahoma offense not necessarily threatening in the way this Alabama's defense is playing. So I could see this kind of as a revenge game, but I also can see it going under that total. But I will lay the points with Alabama.
All right, we got to play for the under, and we got to play for Bama laying the 6. All right, I promised everybody, Emory and Tom, we'd get to this Texas game because you guys made, or what, Tom, I think it was you making the comment that Texas could roll in completely defeated with 0 wins, and we try to find a way to get them into the college football playoff. Emory, I'm going to start with you here. We've got another 6-point spread here. Georgia laying the 6 at home against Texas. I mean, listen, Texas is still in the college football conversation. I will say Arch Manning has started to play a little bit better lately. Emory, what do you like?
Watch this. This is a battle between 2 Heisman Trophy candidates. You see what I did there? Because you're right, Sia. Arch Manning has played better in the last 2 games. And if he plays good in this one, guess what's going to happen? It's going to be back Arch for Heisman again. And if they win this game, oh, man, all bets are off. He's going to New York, and Texas is going to the college football playoff. But this game will be superiorly entertaining because Georgia is doing a great job of keeping teams in ball games, and they're making everybody sweat. Their fans, the bettors, all of it. So Georgia is must-see TV. I think Texas comes out and remembers what happened in the SEC championship game last year, how they had that one in their grasp, right? So I think we can get a back and forth affair. However, I do feel like we'll see the defense of Georgia sort of rise to the occasion late in the fourth quarter, giving them the ball back, giving them enough time to slightly cover this spread. So I will white knuckle it with Georgia here.
All right. Well, Tom, you're on the other side. You're taking the points here with Arch Manning and company.
Yeah, well, first of all, I've been right about Texas all year, so let's start there. I'm 0-3 betting them, or I've just not been right about them. They were my number 1 team coming into the season. I love their defense. I thought Arch would be good enough. So, I just haven't been right on them. But this is it. I mean, this is it, right? This is the playoffs for Texas start Saturday because they have Georgia and Texas A&M. In the regular season. And at best, they got to split. I don't know. We'll see what happens if they split, but they got to win at least one of them. And so I think the defense is going to keep them in this game. One of these things about big games that I always watch is how does the first quarter go? Because when you get a big game and it's lower scoring early, sometimes you get these coaches, they start punting from the 45, right, for field position, and they kind of change the way they play a little bit. We kind of saw that in the game last year in the SEC championship game with Texas and Georgia. And keep in mind, Texas was favored both times last year and lost both those games to Georgia. I'm going to take the points because I think Emory's right. I think it's going to be competitive. I think if Georgia covers, it's in the fourth quarter. So I'll lean Texas here at +6.
All right. We got 1 on the -6. We got 1 on the +6. Any commentary on the total here, 48.5?
Yeah, I would, like I said, I would much rather bet that live because these games like this, I think both these coaches have shown. The thing with Kirby and Sark is I think they've shown that they'll play either way. If it starts off fast, they'll start going for it on 4th and 4, from their own territory. But again, if it's a 3-0 game, then they'll play it a little differently. So I think this is one of these you kind of watch those first couple drives, see where the advantages are, and take a shot on the total live.
Speaking of advantages, one of the advantages to being in the SportsLine Discord is if there is a live bet to offer and Tom is in the Discord, he's going to tell you about it when you need to make it. So again, if you're a SportsLine member, get into that SportsLine Discord. It's free for members. We got to get to our dogs of the week. We got to get to our best bets. We're going to cover that right after this message from our partners. It's time for our best bets and our dogs of the week. Let's bring up our best bets graphic before we do anything here. Emory, Tom, Mike McClory, who had some picks last week as well. Didn't go super well, as you can see here. Overall, though, Mike McClure still operating at a plus, a pretty significant plus there. Emory, Tom, you all have some work to do, but good news. You can do that work right now. Let's get to our best bets. Emory, I'm going to start with you. Give me two.
All right, I give you both. First, let's start with Texas A&M, South Carolina under 47.5. The reason why I like this under, A&M has a great defense that looks like the old Wrecking Crew defense of the 90s. So I love that for them. I love that against a struggling offense in South Carolina. And on the other side of the field, when we're talking about offense and points, only one team is going to be doing a lot of scoring, and that's A&M. So I can see this one going under that total, just like we saw last week with Texas A&M and Missouri. New Mexico, minus 14.5. We talked about this on Monday in our FCS G5 chat. Minus 14.5 versus Colorado State. Jason Eck, phenomenal football coach, has the Lobos going bowling, and he's done a great job in quickly turning around that program. And the beat goes on at home against Colorado State, minus 14.5.
Yeah, things can unravel quickly with Colorado State. Last week against UNLV, I think they took, because I was watching that game, I had a bet on UNLV. They took a 7-0 lead, and then it was like over. UNLV just completely took over. So I expect New Mexico to do the same thing. Tom, how about a couple of best bets?
Yeah, so my best bets have been terrible, but one of the things I realized is that I write a best spots play every Thursday, and the picks in those games in that article have actually done really well. So I said to myself, all right, instead of waiting for Thursday morning, what plays are you going to have in the spots article? So there was two that I kind of like this week. I think Penn State is in the worst spot of the season. I really do. So this was a team that started number 2 in the country, lost their quarterback, fired their coach, and they fought hard the last 3 games, especially the last 2 weeks against Ohio State, which was close at halftime. And man, you lose that game to Indiana, it's going to be hard to get up the next week against lowly Michigan State on the road, right? I mean, they had that game, one of the great catches you'll ever see, beats them. So I think going on the road against a bad team is actually that hurts Penn State this week. I think it's going to be tough for those kids to get up. So I'm going to go plus 7.5 with Michigan State. And then the game Emory was talking about, this is a tricky game for Texas A&M. Not that they're going to lose it, but South Carolina is a 3-6 team that doesn't have 3-6 talent. And if you look at their scores this year, they don't really get blown out. I mean, they've only lost by this number once, and it was a game where Lenora Sellers left with an injury against Vanderbilt. So they're a type of team that can muck it up. They can stay, I agree with Emory's under. That's kind of my angle on the play. I think Texas A&M is going to win this game, but I think it's going to be a 27-10, 27-13 kind of game. And just remember when you get this close to the playoffs, like these are 18 and 19-year-old kids. They got one eye on Texas. They got another eye on the playoff. And here comes poor old South Carolina having a disappointing season. So I'm hoping this is one of those sleepy, low-scoring games that's over in 2.5 hours and South Carolina covers the big number.
It's certainly in terms of spot plays, it certainly does feel like a good spot for South Carolina to cover the spread here. And I got to tell you, I didn't really have a rooting interest in that Indiana-Penn State game. But when I saw that Penn State, as bad as their season has been, and Emory, I'll take your commentary here, as bad as their season has been, and I'm not a big Penn State fan. I don't dislike Penn State either. Realizing that they could pull off this monumental upset, I started to kind of root for that. And then to watch how they lost with that terrific catch and just physics bending, toe tap, it was unbelievable. Emory, your thoughts on that?
It shows you why you need a 24-team playoff, because you get games like this when there's no tomorrow, everything is on the line. This is a 16 versus 1 and you use a college basketball reference. This is a Boise State versus Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl or wherever that bowl was. I think it was Fiesta Bowl, but this is how those games happen. And what a great way. And anytime you got Gus Johnson on the call, you got to know magic is going to happen.
That Boise State game, how many years ago was that now? 15? That was incredible. Okay, let's get to our underdog bets of the week. Tom, I'll start with you.
I'm gonna go with Air Force. Again, a team that I haven't had a ton of success with this year, but they're in this underdog role now. Like, this is more of a play against UConn. Last week, UConn was an underdog to Duke, and that's when you want to bet UConn, right? I believe Emory liked them last week as an underdog. Now you make them as a bigger favorite. Coming off no bye week, getting that offense that you didn't really have time to prepare for. Last week I went with Temple here, who lost by a point, and that was because they had seen Army. They've seen the option earlier in the season when they played Navy. They actually lost to Navy and Army both by 1 point. I know that some of our producers aren't happy about that, but I think when coming off the big win against Duke, the emotional win against Duke, having to play that option, I think Air Force has a chance to steal the game late.
Yeah, shout out to producer Sharon, who's actually not producing this show. That's, of course, Ben, but Sharon, big Temple guy. All right, Emory, how about a play on NC State?
Give me NC State plus 440 against Miami. And it may sound crazy. They're 14.5-point underdogs, but if you've been following NC State, they have who I think could be the quarterback QB1 in 2027 in CJ Bailey, who is a phenomenal talent. He put on weight this year. He's still slim, but he put on weight. So he's trending in the right direction to where he's starting to fill out that frame. And they play great ball, man. They've beaten Virginia in an ACC regulated game. Even though Virginia is undefeated in ACC play, they lost to NC State. They beat America's team in Georgia Tech because they were just out there scoring. And they did it without their top tailback, Hollywood Smothers, who will be back in this game. And we've seen Miami play down to the competition, and we'll see CJ Bailey outperform Carson Beck. And it's great for Miami fans because you get a glimpse of your QB in 2027 in CJ Bailey, because I guarantee that's where he's going to end up when it's all said and done.
We got to do a top 10 college football names, because Hollywood Smothers, if that's not top 3, I mean, I don't know what's going on here. All right, gentlemen, that's going to do it for our NFL Picks show. But let's take a look at the best bets. Emory Hunt has Texas A&M, South Carolina under 47.5, and New Mexico minus 14.5. Tom Casale, Michigan State plus 7.5, and South Carolina plus 19.5. What a great show. What a great conversation. We kind of recapped some of our, I had fun talking about the bad beats and even some of the good beats, Tom. So let's remember that we've got just as many bad beats, or I should say maybe just as many good beats, good fortune as bad beats, but hopefully we strike it green in the NFL, or I should say the college football week 12 picks show. Thank you, Emory. Thank you, Tom. Ladies and gentlemen, do not forget, you can find these two. You can find me and a lot of the SportsLine universe on the Early Edge Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock on the SportsLine YouTube channel. Again, that's the Early Edge on the SportsLine YouTube channel. For now, we're going to say goodbye. Again, thanks to Emory, Tom, and thanks for producing Ben on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s. We'll see you next time on the Early Edge.